Welcome to Science Access. In today's class, we'll be talking about hypothesis. What is hypothesis? Hypothesis is simply a proposed explanation for a phenomenon, and this explanation serves as a foundation for scientific method. I can also call it an educated guess that can be tested through experimentation or scientific method or even an observation. Please take note. Educated guess that can be what? Tested through scientific method. Now, let me give you a simple observation. Now, let's assume that you are in a classroom, or let's use a company, for example. You can just observe a company that have flexible working hours, and the workers are so happy. Then you now give a proposed explanation. Companies with a flexible working hour have more happy workers than those with rigid and long working hour. Now, you have given an explanation for your observation. What did you observe? You observed that the workers in the companies, they are what? Happy. And you now gave a proposed explanation for that because they have what? A flexible working hour. You are not comparing them with them. So this, your proposed explanation can be tested. So this proposed explanation is called what? Hypothesis. Is the proposed explanation that can be tested through what? Scientific method. You can eventually decide to test and check all the companies with working hours, then check the ones with rigid or with a very long working hour and all that. Then now check, interview the workers, and now subject your findings or your data to scientific what analysis or data analysis. Then you will now come up with a theory in that case. So please take note. But your observation that can be subjected to this scientific method is called what? Hypothesis. Note that this hypothesis, you have not subjected it to a scientific method. So a proposed explanation that can be tested through scientific method is what we call what? Hypothesis. Now, there are several characteristics of hypothesis. Hypothesis must be testable, must be falsifiable, must be specific, consistent with existing knowledge, measurable, must be simple as much as it can. So let's just explain some of these and some of the qualities of this hypothesis. Number one, testable. An hypothesis must have a scientific method which can be used to gather evidence to prove if it is true or false. Please take note of that. I said before, using the company, you must be able to gather that kind of hypothesis. You can able to what? You must be able to gather evidence to prove it is true or false. Second one, it must be falsifiable. You must be able to prove. Hypothesis should not be positioned in such a way that it must be true. No, it must be able to prove. It must be able to be proven to be false in some cases or true. So it's almost similar to the first one. He said the next one is simple. It must be specific. Now, what do I mean by specific? It must state clearly the relationship between what? Variables. For example, in the case of the company, flexible what? Working hours, happiness, variables. So it's stating clearly or in a specific way the relationship between what? The variables. Flexible working hours and what? Um, being what? Happy, the mode. Being happy. It must be consistent with what? Existing knowledge. Though hypothesis or should be based on proven scientific principle in most cases, but we know that there are always discovery which can eventually what? Overtake previous what? Knowledge in exceptional what? Or in few what? Cases. Please take note of that. Hypothesis should be relevant to what? The research what? Question we are talking about be relevant. It should be measurable, as I said earlier, and take note of the right, take note of the fact that it should be as simple as you can. It should be stated clearly as simple as what you can. Now let's talk about the types of hypothesis. We have the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis. The null hypothesis is a default position stating that there is no relationship between the variables. For example, in this case, there is no relationship between the working hours and happiness. While alternate hypothesis is actually stating that there is a relationship between the variables. Stating that there is a relationship between working hours and happiness. So one is saying there's no relationship, the other one is saying what? There's a relationship. So please take note of that. Now, what are the significance of hypothesis? Take note of type 1 and type 2 error in hypothesis anyway. All right, what are the significance of hypothesis? Note that it helps in research guidance or it guides research. For example, it provides guidance in terms of designing research and collection of data. It also helps in predictive or power, or it brings about predicting what power. Now, it can make you to make a reasonable prediction regarding the outcome of the research. And other importance of this is actually being highlighted in board. This is a simple lesson regarding hypothesis. Thank you for watching.